One clay pot, a hole in the ground, 5 minutes. That is all it takes to build an irrigation system that waters your garden for 6 months without you ever touching a hose again. No timers, no drip lines, no monthly water bills that make you wince. The ancient world perfected this technology 4,000 years ago. NASA tested it for growing food on Mars. Universities across 3 continents have proven it uses 70% less water than the drip systems lining every garden center shelf. And yet, walk into any hardware store in America and ask about Ollas, and you will be met with blank stares. 2 things explain why this 4,000-year-old technology disappeared from public knowledge in just 50 years. One involves an irrigation method so efficient it threatened to make an entire industry obsolete. The other involves fertilizer companies that discovered constant watering was more profitable than solutions that actually worked. By the end of this video, I will show you exactly how to build a system that has kept gardens alive through droughts, fed families through famines, and outlasted every modern irrigation fad invented in the last century. But first, you need to understand what was buried and why the companies selling you plastic drip lines and fertilizer by the bag made sure you never learned about it. If you have ever stood in your garden with a hose in your hand, watching water puddle on the surface and run off before it reaches the roots, watching your water bill climb every summer, and wondered if there was a better way, you are about to discover something that changes everything. Because the solution is not newer technology. It is older technology that works so well it required no upgrades, no replacement parts, and no corporate middleman standing between you and a thriving garden. Here is where the story begins. In the 1st century AD, a Roman agricultural knighter named Columella documented something he had observed across the Mediterranean. Farmers were burying unglazed clay pots in their fields, filling them with water, and walking away. The pots, made from simple terracotta, were porous. Water seeped slowly through the clay walls, directly into the surrounding soil. The moisture spread outward in a perfect sphere, reaching plant roots exactly where they needed it. No surface runoff, no evaporation, no waste. Columella described the practice as if it were common knowledge, a technique so obvious it barely required explanation. He was documenting what ancient China had already perfected 2,000 years earlier. Archaeological digs in the Yellow River Basin have unearthed buried irrigation vessels dating back to 2000 BC. The same technology appeared independently in northern Africa, in pre-Columbian Peru, and among the indigenous peoples of the American Southwest. This was not a regional trick. This was a universal solution to a universal problem. How do you water plants in places where water is scarce and every drop counts? The answer, tested across 4,000 years and a dozen civilizations, was the Olla, the Spanish word for pot. But here is what separates ancient wisdom from modern superstition. The Olla is not folklore. It is physics, biology, and hydrology working together in a system so elegant it has never been improved upon. When you bury an unglazed clay pot and fill it with water, the porous walls act as a semi-permeable membrane. Water molecules escape through microscopic pores in the clay and diffuse into the surrounding soil. The rate of seepage is controlled by soil moisture. When the soil is dry, suction increases and water flows faster. When the soil is saturated, the flow slows to almost nothing. The system self-regulates. It gives plants exactly what they need when they need it, without any
input from you. Plant roots, which are attracted to moisture, grow directly toward the buried pot. They form a dense network around the clay walls, maximizing water uptake. The entire root zone stays evenly moist, never waterlogged, never bone dry. This is the optimal condition for nutrient absorption, microbial activity, and plant health. And once you bury the pot, it works for decades. Now here is where it gets strange. This 4,000-year-old method, documented by Romans, perfected by the Chinese, and used successfully across every inhabited continent, vanished from American agricultural knowledge in less than 50 years. The timeline is precise, and the culprit is unmistakable. In 1945, the Second World War ended. Factories that had been producing explosives needed a new product to sell. Ammonium nitrate, a key ingredient in bombs, became the foundation of synthetic fertilizer. The Haber-Bosch process, once a military secret, flooded the market with cheap nitrogen. Chemical companies like Monsanto, DuPont, and Dow pivoted from war production to agriculture. Their new business model required one critical element. Farmers had to keep buying. A bag of fertilizer works once. Next season, you need another bag. The subscription was built in. But there was a problem. Fertilizer only works when water delivers it to the roots. And water only delivers nutrients efficiently when the soil goes through wet and dry cycles. If the soil stays constantly moist, nutrient uptake is steady and efficient. Plants need less fertilizer, but if the soil dries out between waterings, nutrients lock up in the soil. Plants show deficiency. Farmers buy more fertilizer. The irrigation method you use determines how much fertilizer you need. OH-yah keeps soil moisture constant. Fertilizer companies needed watering systems that did not. Enter drip irrigation. Invented in Israel in the 1960s, drip systems became the modern answer to water scarcity. On the surface, they seemed like progress. Tubes delivered water directly to plant roots. Less evaporation, more control. But there was a hidden cost. Drip lines clog. They degrade in sunlight. They require filters, pressure regulators, and timers. Most systems need replacement every 3 to 5 years. The global drip irrigation market is now worth $6.5 billion annually. Every component is proprietary. Every part is designed to wear out. And every system requires constant adjustment to prevent the exact problem OH-yah solved 4,000 years ago: uneven watering. But here is what the industry never tells you. Multiple universities have run head-to-head tests comparing OH-yahs to drip irrigation. The results are not close. They are embarrassing. The University of Arizona conducted a 7-year study starting in 2006, testing buried clay pots against drip systems in desert conditions. OH-yahs used 50 to 70% less water than drip lines and 90% less water than overhead sprinklers. Plants grown with OH-yahs had deeper root systems, better drought resistance, and higher yields. The study concluded that OH-yahs were the most efficient irrigation method ever tested for small-scale agriculture. New Mexico State University replicated the results in 2012. UC Davis confirmed the findings in 2015. NASA Ames Research Center tested OH-yahs between 2018 and 2020 as part of their Mars Colony agriculture program. The reason was simple. On Mars, every drop of water is precious. You cannot afford waste. You cannot afford systems that break. OH-yahs, made from local clay and requiring zero maintenance, were the clear winner. If the technology is good enough for NASA to consider for interplanetary farming, why is it not good enough for your backyard? The suppression was not loud, it was silent. Agricultural extension offices, the government programs that teach farmers new techniques, simply stopped mentioning OH-yahs. University programs focused on drip irrigation and center pivot systems. Garden centers stocked plastic drip kits and soaker hoses. The terracotta pots that could do the job better sat on the shelf labeled as planters, not irrigation. No one banned Ollas, no one had to. The industry just made sure you never heard about them. And because there is no patent on a 4,000-year-old clay pot, no company had an incentive to market them. You cannot build a billion-dollar industry on a product people buy once and use for 20 years. Now let me tell you what happens when you bury your first Olla. You take an unglazed terracotta pot, any size from a quart to 5 gallons depending on your garden. You dig a hole deep enough so the pot sits with its rim at or just above soil level. You bury it, pack soil around it, and fill it with water. Then you cover the top with a lid or a flat stone to prevent evaporation and keep mosquitoes out. That is the entire installation. 5 minutes of work. What happens next is invisible but measurable. Within hours, water begins seeping through the clay walls. The soil around the pot darkens with moisture. Plant roots, sensing the water, begin growing toward the pot. Within days, a network of fine root hairs forms a living sleeve around the buried clay. The plants drink directly from the source. No surface puddling, no runoff, no evaporation loss. You refill the pot once every 3 to 7 days, depending on its size and the weather. A 1-gallon Olla waters a 3-foot radius. A 5-gallon Olla can handle a 10-foot circle. In hot, dry climates, Ollas have kept tomato plants alive through 100-degree summers, with refills twice a week. In moderate climates, gardeners report refilling once every 2 weeks. Here is the benefit no one talks about. Ollas eliminate 80% of fungal diseases caused by wet foliage. Because water is delivered underground, leaves stay dry. Powdery mildew, blight, and leaf spot thrive on surface moisture. Subsurface watering removes their breeding ground. You get healthier plants without fungicides. You also get deeper roots. Surface watering encourages shallow root systems that collapse in drought.
Olive watering draws roots down, creating plants that can survive heat and dry spells. A tomato plant watered from above might have roots 6 inches deep. The same plant watered with an Olla will send roots 2 feet down. That is drought insurance built into the biology of the plant. Urban gardeners in places like Los Angeles and Phoenix have turned to Ollas as water restrictions tighten. One gardener in Tucson documented a summer where she refilled her Ollas twice and never touched a hose. Her vegetables thrived while her neighbors' drip lines clogged and failed. Permaculture farms in New Mexico use Ollas exclusively, reporting savings that cut their utility bills in half. In Spain, where the technique never fully disappeared, rural gardeners still bury clay pots the way their grandparents did. They know what industrial agriculture forgot. The best technology is the one that works forever. Here is the final detail that should make you angry. The clay pot sitting in your garden center, the one sold as a planter for $3 to $15, is the exact same object. Unglazed terracotta. Porous walls. The only difference is the label. If it said irrigation system, it would threaten a $6.5 billion industry. So it says planter, and you walk past it every time you buy. Another section of drip line that will crack and clog by next season. The technology that watered the hanging gardens of Babylon, that fed Roman legions, that kept indigenous communities alive in the American Southwest for 1,000 years, is hiding in plain sight. Unlabeled, unmarketed, and waiting for you to remember what your ancestors knew. The choice is simple. You can keep buying systems designed to fail, feeding an industry that profits from your dependence. Or you can bury a pot, fill it with water, and walk away. The Olla does not care about your business model. It just works. It worked 4,000 years ago. It works today. And it will work 20 years from now When the drip lines in your neighbor's yard are cracked and useless, the clay does not lie, the clay just seeps. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more suppressed knowledge that should never have been forgotten. The irrigation industry does not want you to know this, but now you do.